Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Also, because my sister's been shut out the last 2 Tuesdays, I asked her to join us today. Susan, hey.
Hey, yeah, not that I mattered except for the part where I have to get up at the crack of
dawn. At the crack of dark, right. Well, that's what you get for being in sunny Southern California, you know. I'm assuming
yeah, which has been cold and rainy.
Has been cold
and rainy. So.
Wow, wow.
It's okay. It's a beautiful day today. But
okay.
Can I tell you a cute dog story to start?
Oh, dear. Dog. Okay, something tells me this will be about a dog named Ernie. Okay, let's do it.
Yes, it is. It's about this morning. So as happenstance would have it, I went to bed very early last night, and therefore I woke up naturally very early this morning, and he could tell I was up, and he sat by the bed and suggested that he needed to go outside, and I told him it was too early anyway. And then about an hour later, it's still very dark. I say, okay, let's go for a walk. So we get up, we go outside. It's just beginning to lighten, and he gives me this look like, are you totally screwed up or what? And he walked to the nearest tree, he peed, and then he very deliberately turned me around and walked me back to the house.
You mean he was thinking you were mixed up because it was dark out in the morning?
I was totally mixed up, right. And then he went upstairs and he completely performed his bedtime routine, where he goes upstairs and waits for me at the foot of the bed to come up with a treat because it's dark out and it's time to be in bed.
God. Aw.
And so, yeah, I got myself a cup of coffee and I brought him up a treat, and then which he said, okay, good, you're sort of okay now.
But then what happened when it got light a few minutes later?
Well, it didn't. I mean, it's just getting light, and he's still asleep at the foot of the bed. So.
Well, then he's all screwed up. That's funny. Dogs. What can you do? I have to tell you, I found out that don't make me laugh too much because when I laugh, it hurts.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have to tell people, I had some surgery yesterday. Should we tell them what it was?
It's up to you because only you can know the level of humiliation that you feel. Uh-oh, I made you laugh. I'm really sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I only laughs when I hurt. It was sort of hurting all the time, but
I just remember, laughter is what fuels you.
Laughter is what? I lost
fuels you.
Fuels me. It's true.
It makes you better.
So, also, I mean, the show has just had some difficulties. Josh, could I have my volume up a little in my ear? I'm an old lady and I'm going deaf. Oh, and I just got somebody saying they want more volume. They can't hear me. Okay. I'm deaf. My audience is deaf. You got young ears. What do you know? Okay, turn it up. Okay, I hope that's better, guys. Better for me, too. So I don't know where to start this. I looked at what the doctor. I had a mass.
Can I just tell
they said it was a mass. A mass. It sounds better. I had a mass.
We've been calling her unicorn.
I've had this growth in the middle of my scalp, and I've had it for a long, I mean, it's been there for 10, 15 years. And it's one of those things that when I'd go to get my hair done, and they lay you back and they're shampooing, I always felt embarrassed. And I always felt I had to say to whatever poor person was about to put their hands on my head, I have an incipient horn on my head that you're going to bump into. Please don't let it gross you out. Oh, they always said, oh, people have bumps all over their heads, right? But this thing started really growing to the point where in the last 4 months, I couldn't wear my hair the way I wanted to because it kept poking. It was parting my hair in the middle. It was definitely growing. So by this time, it is full on smack in the unicorn. Seriously. So, and I asked various people about it, and nobody thought it was like something dangerous, but volume is still low. Don't know. We'll try to get it. Oh, and you're missing these great stories about Ernie and my unicorn horn? By the way, the surgeon said I wasn't a unicorn because a unicorn horn is more toward the forehead.
In the front of the forehead.
And
right.
I reposted, how the hell do you know? No one's ever seen a unicorn.
Right.
Right? That's just people would think Jesus was
frankly,
blonde-haired and blue-eyed, right? Because that's the way people painted it.
Or maybe have pink hair because that's how My Pretty Little Pony does it. But, I have to say, that's just body shaming for a unicorn.
That's right. So anyway, it got to the point where everybody agreed that thing better come out. And so yesterday, it did. And, it just seemed like a very easy kind of a thing. And I was dopey yesterday, but not in pain. And then the whatever local anesthetic they'd used to numb the top of my scalp wore off. And well, as somebody said, I have an incision. I have a cut in my scalp about this big, and stitches. So,
hey, Lynn, can you say in inches or centimeters how big it is? Because those of us that aren't watching you on the screen have no idea how wide apart.
I think I said I think it's about 2.5 inches, and I'm trying not to be.
Ooh! Ow! 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 Shiver me timbers! Ow.
Oh yeah. So I put a Kleenex under my headset to try to make sure that I'm not infecting it. I don't know. Anyway, oh, that hurt. I'm not a unicorn anymore. It's amazing how
I know, but one of these days, I think it would be a great book. I mean, don't you think it would be the subject for a great character who has all these strange things that only happen to her body?
It is an odd body. Before we went into, they bring in this physician assistant who went through all the surgeries I had. She said, I need to, check on all your surgery. And, about 20 minutes later, I said, can't we just stop? She said, no. I think we're just in 1995. I said, please stop. Yeah.
She still had 2 near-death experiences to go.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, this body is really one battered bod. But anyway, here I am. And the funny thing about this, there's just one other thing. I wish I had this in like 1963, because in 1963 I got a part in a musical production of Music Man that was being put on by a local theater group in Green Bay. And I was in the
Dudley Birders Theater. Yes.
He put on wonderful stuff, and I got a part in the dancing chorus. And the young girl who was playing the young girl lead, whoever that was, I can't remember. She wasn't the lead, but she was a young girl who had some lines. She was this lovely kid, and she found out this was happening at a Catholic school, college, and she found out I was Jewish. And she actually said to me, with wonder on her face, looking at me, Can I see your horns? And
Yep.
I have to tell you,
that happened to me at East High too.
did it?
Yeah.
I had never heard that Jews, some people actually thought Jews had horns. I had never in my life heard that. And I remember saying, my horns? Just like, what? And she said, yes, your horns. And I mean this. So here's these two out-of-it kids in Green Bay. And I said, I don't have any horns. And she was, I could tell, so confused and disappointed. Anyway, if only I'd had this. I could have said,
that's
here.
what I was thinking. I was, thinking finally somebody that can prove that Michelangelo was right, at least half right.
No. So what happened? This came from, I don't know if he made it up, the Michelangelo sculpture of Moses.
Well, I think it came from a mistranslation of the Bible.
Yeah,
what
plenty
it came
of those.
From, of the Torah.
Yeah.
But yeah, some word came to be that was descriptive of Moses came to be interpreted as he having horns, and is as Michelangelo depicts him in his very famous statue of him, and therefore, and then that just took off.
Well, so anyway, this Jew has been dehorned. I still very old-fashionedly have a book where I keep my schedule and what I'm doing on any given day. And yesterday's had only in big capital letters, "Kill the unicorn." So, ow, it's gone. So it's gone. Yes. Anyway, Ray says the national animal of Scotland is the unicorn. It is? Really? By the way, people are saying they like the sound now. So, although one person says I can't hear anything anymore. But you know what, guys? Whatever. We can't please everybody. I think Abe Lincoln said it. So he says Scotland is the unicorn. No wonder they won't vote to leave Britain now. And Ray says he's sorry if he was overbearing on the phone last week. No, you weren't. You were passionate, Ray. And I just love it when people call. Excuse me. I love it when people call and we're not, singing from the same. Some of the same, what do you call that? My head's still not right.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just appreciate it. Yeah.
And it's not even good for us because how do we rethink our stances if we won't ever listen to anybody that disagrees with us?
Yeah. Uh-oh. Francis has just written, I give up listening until you fix the sound. It's just too annoying. Let us know on Facebook when it's fixed and I'll tune in again. Well, there's one down. But that's the same person who said she can't hear anything now. Well, toodaloo, Francis. Everybody else seems to be hearing it. I don't know what to tell you. God dang it. Okay, so a lot's happened, as it always does in this era, since I've been gone. By the way, the other thing that happened, the reason there wasn't a show on Monday before, is because Amy, my producer, flew off to Boston on Friday, intending to come back Sunday. And that big snowstorm that really wasn't, still managed to cancel her flight, Monday as well, and Tuesday as well. Do you believe that? It was not.
What do people do?
You tell me what people do. So at least they have family there. So she texted me that if they don't get a flight out today, they're renting a car and driving. And I'm thinking, do the airlines reimburse you for the cost of a rental car in that situation? I bet they don't.
No, because if it's weather related, then they declare an act of God and themselves blameless.
But it's
although sometimes when it's weather related, they waive fees, in which case they might give her a refund.
Oh God. Anyway, so all things should be back to normal tomorrow. I'm hoping.
Except for the sound system.
No, everybody's reporting in that everything sounds pretty good now. So I've gotten a lot more thumbs up than thumbs down. So,
but can we have callers?
Yes, Susan. Yes, people can still call. Susan's on a different. We got her in a different way because anyway, we got problems right here in River City. Speaking of the Music Man. So I don't know. Is there any the shutdown thing is really getting ridiculous. All the polling says.
Well, the IRS folks are not going in at much larger number than the TSA folks, and I have to. If you had me on 2 weeks ago, I would have been saying, I don't care if it's against the law for the TSA not to work. If you want to shut this thing down, everybody that's not getting paid, walk off your jobs. It's involuntary servitude. The country has no right to demand it of you. And if you want to bring the country to their knees and show those assholes in Washington that there are really effects to what they are doing and consequences, walk off the job.
What if their jobs, however, like air traffic controllers, are absolutely essential?
I'll tell you what if. Then the airlines don't fly until this happens. That's what happens.
And
I'm telling you, this thing would be settled in 24 hours. Everybody stop working.
I think you're right. That would do it. That would do it, wouldn't it? It is involuntary servitude. They are being ordered to work without pay.
I've been saying all of these things from day one. They have absolutely no right. Absolutely no right. Requiring, it's a basic tenet of law that you can't even force somebody who wants to break a contract for personal services. You can make them pay you money, but you can't force them to do the work. You can't force someone to perform. So if you can't even under a contract that you're willing to pay force someone to perform, there's absolutely no way the government can require you to work, especially for weeks on end with no promise of payment, period. You can't do
Well,
that.
there is a promise of payment as soon as they
No, we'll pay you later. Future payment is not payment. No. No. If they aren't paying them according to their contract, they are the breachers of the contract. Period. And requiring them to work without any end sight or any guarantee that payment is coming tomorrow or the next day. And while these people still have bills and everything else to pay, I'm telling you, if everything stops working until Congress and the president figure this out, we will be done in 24, 36 hours. I promise you.
Well, that is true because shutting down the airports, it's not passengers as much. The airlines will go nuts, but it's also U.S. commerce. It's UPS, it's the mail, it's that kind of stuff. It's the commercial stuff.
It stops the country.
Yeah, it would stop the country in its tracks. And they can't fire them all like they did the TSA guys when they went on strike, if you'll recall.
Nope.
And that might,
Nope.
I don't know. The FBI Agents Association said yesterday that they have already lost informants that had penetrated groups at the center of terrorism investigations. And the official said, this is a quote, not being able to pay confidential human sources risks losing them and the information they provide forever. It is not a switch that we can turn on and off. So there's that. While Trump says this is about national security, to keep the hordes of terrorists coming across. Yeah, we are actually getting hurt in the real effort to stop terrorism. You got mobile food banks parking at airports to help the TSA screeners. You've got California and the mayor of D.C. ignoring federal rules. They're already saying, screw this, and they are offering unpaid federal workers unemployment benefits, which is not, I guess, the way it works. The TSA has sent emails to saying that there are certain airports that are struggling so much that they are begging for others to come to their airports. It's and a lot, what they're doing is they're saying some people who were furloughed, like some Homeland Security people, they are now being said they've decided that their work is essential, and so they are being called back to work even though they will not be paid. Vision insurance, dental insurance will begin lapsing this week for a lot of these federal workers.
And let me tell you something about that. If your insurance lapses,
yeah,
then what happens? And you have a pre-existing condition.
The guys in the Coast Guard haven't. Yeah, the FDA is not inspecting food. Immigration hearings have been canceled. Hundreds of thousands of them, tens of thousands. On and on. It's unbelievable. And
people can't buy and sell their houses. And people
that's
can't
right.
buy and sell their houses because the FHA employees weren't working. And then they go, oh, that's real estate. Got to bring them back. I'm telling you, if all of these people who are not being paid stop working, just stop working.
Yeah. And, you think it's just federal workers? Say you're in a place with a heavy concentration of federal workers, like Washington, D.C. The restaurants there, the taxi and ride-sharing drivers are hurting like hell. There's nobody, nothing's moving, literally, and they can't afford to eat out. So this really drifts down into the, public, the private sector.
Well, and I do have to say that if Congress decides to withhold pay, or the president decides to withhold pay, they can't continue to pay themselves and their staff.
But they are.
Of course they are. But and the fact of the matter is to most of those people it wouldn't matter. To a few it would, but to most of them it wouldn't matter. But you just can't say those people are currently our citizens and are going to be held hostage by our country, and we are going to use them as a bargaining chip. And oops, if we are impoverishing them, if we are jeopardizing their homes and their livelihoods and their ability to feed their children, and they're all behind me. They believe in the principle of the thing.
No, what's funny? You know what's funny? Initially, he said that most of these federal workers are Democrats. So, he sees, lazy Democrats, a.k.a. people of color, too, sitting in government offices, and he says they're Democrats. And then, literally 5 minutes later, he says the people who are not being paid are behind me. No, well, there's, students at universities are unable to get secure their student loans again, because so there's all kinds of banks and credit unions are offering assistance. By the way, here I heard the Hebrew Free Loan Society here in Pittsburgh is offering any federal worker in distress loans up to $2,500, I believe, dollars. The Hebrew Free Loan Society is an amazing organization. It doesn't have a ton of money, but it exists to give people loans when they're in true distress, and these loans are no interest loans, okay? And that's here in Pittsburgh for some of you. I know Enrico Biscotti in the Strip District is offering furloughed people, I think, free lunches. So there is such a thing as a free lunch. And I think other organizations are doing the same thing. So it's outrageous. It's outrageous. The feds have not paid a $5 million water bill to the District of Columbia, which last time I looked was not, extraordinarily rich.
We aren't paying a goddamn Coast Guard.
No. And one of my sons...
By the way, that's our military.
That's the military.
They guard our coast.
The Border Patrol is also not being paid. And, this is all about securing the borders. Just on and on and on. It's a program that provides food assistance to more than 7 million low-income pregnant women has not been funded. SNAP, food stamps will eventually be curtailed, but they might be able to keep that running up into February, which, by the way, guys, is just, less than a week away. On and on. Anyway, CNN had a whole list here of things that they're in. By the way, this is just coming in. Phoenix police are announcing an arrest in the case of the woman in the vegetative state who had a baby.
Well, they found the DNA, found the...
I would think. I'm not seeing anything else on it, but yeah. So, well, that at least is good. Let me just get... Milton says, the depiction of horned Moses stems from the description of Moses's face as cornuta, which translates as horned in the Latin Vulgate translation of the passage found at Exodus chapter 34, in which Moses returns to the people after receiving the commandments for the second time. So that he comes down from the mountain and all of a sudden he has horns. But it says, as Susan said, it's a bad translation, where they say, did not know his face had become horned. Oh, God. And so I get that question. Susan gets that question. Jonathan writes to say, I once had to stay overnight in a dorm for college orientation, and my roommate was from West Virginia. We were talking when the lights were out, and he said, I ain't never met a Jew before. My grandma and I said, you all have horns. And so Jonathan says, thanks for confirming that, Lynn. So, a lot of Jews have been asked that question, and it's literally what people were told. I don't take
you don't even get angry.
No, why would you?
Total ignorance.
Yeah.
It's total ignorance, and you allow them to disabuse themselves of that notion.
Yeah.
And you tell them it's
that's just not true.
It's just not true. It's because of a mistranslation that was carried on through art, and blah 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 blah. And you just tell them the truth. And if people I frequently had conversations where they went, but do you eat Christian babies? And I said, and if it got to that point, I would usually say, only on Passover.
We need their blood to make our matzah. All this would be funny if it wasn't just. It just doesn't die.
At a certain point, you're allowed to get angry, but in the beginning, no.
It's just ignorance.
ignorance.
Right.
I mean, the second question from the woman that asked me about the horns was, well, where were you born then, in Israel? And, and her name was Mary. I can remember the whole conversation. I said, Mary, are you Catholic? And she said, yes. And I said, were you born in Rome? And she said, isn't that just sneaky like a Jew? And I said, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, because I had a superior argument. She ended it with a slur, so, she got whopped. But
no,
anyway,
but so it
all
just
because
reinforced
someone
what she...
God. No, that was because someone at East High walked by and said, Happy Hanukkah to me.
Oh.
And this woman turned around, with her jaw on the floor.
You're a
Girl,
Jew?
Are you a Jew?
Yeah. Well, yeah. But, the thing we always had for the horn thing is, here, feel my... There's no horns.
Yeah.
Until,
right.
the unicorn thing happened to me.
Until you grew one.
Right.
And then you had to say, no, we don't have horns, furtively.
I have a Jewish artisty kind of friend who said, could you ask the surgeon to, give me the horn? I'd like to use it in a... I said, you are out. Cannot have my horn. Ugh. So anyway.
Well, are you ever going to find out what it was? Are you going to get a pathology report?
Yeah, you do. Right. It'll turn out to be some disgusting, come on, bodies do awful things.
Well,
things that
particularly yours.
Things, that's true. Remember my Bezor?
Your body has,
right. Remember
your
my
body has the most wonderful imagination.
I know. I come
What
up with
if we could
remember the Bezor? That was even more
I
disgusting than the
remember
horn.
The Bezor.
If you don't know what a Bezor is, look it up. It's essentially a human hairball. And I had one, this grotesque thing in my gut. And I don't eat hair, so it wasn't made up of hair, but I don't know what the hell it was made up of. It was the most... They took a picture of it. They snake things down. And so I have a picture somewhere of my Bezor. It is so revolting. Oh, God. And, I hadn't heard of that either. I hadn't heard of Jews' horns, and then I get one. I hadn't heard of Bezors, and I get one. So, hey, I have to... I'm seeing somebody's writing me something about our current senator, but that brings me to Susan. I got to highlight an obit today that is a former senator of Pennsylvania who was truly a wonderful human being, and he's not well known. So would you give me a sec? I'm getting all...
No, it's your show.
Okay, but I'm getting this from the New York Times obit today. His name was Harris Wofford. He died at the age of 92 on Martin Luther King Day, which is apt because he was a friend of Dr. King's, and he was an aide at some points to Dr. King. He was with Dr. King much of the time. In fact, when they did the march, what march was it? In Selma, maybe? And Dr. King was about to speak, and Harris Wofford slipped him scribbled a note that just said First Amendment and handed it to Dr. King. And then Dr. King starts, of course, speaking eloquently, and he was invoking the Bible to support the march that set off in Selma, Alabama. And then he looked down, and he was holding Harris's note, and he said this, "And we march in the name of the Constitution, knowing the Constitution is on our side, the right of the people peaceably to assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances shall not be abridged. That is the First Amendment." And Harris Wofford, he became a senator by being appointed by our Governor Casey at the time, the Senator Casey's father. And he was appointed to serve out the rest of the term of another wonderful senator that we had who was a Republican, Senator John Hines, who died in a plane crash at a young age. And John Hines was that kind of Republican that doesn't exist anymore. He would be a Democrat now. But so he only had 6 months left in his term, and he would then have to run against Dick Thornburgh, who was then the Attorney General of the United States and had been governor here and wanted to be senator. And Thornburgh was considered just sort of an insurmountable winner, so nobody wanted to get this 6-month appointment. It was even offered to Lee Iacocca. Remember that name? Head of Chrysler?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so Casey eventually says, "Hey, Harris, would you do this for me?" And Wofford said, "Yeah, sure, I will." He did. And then he went on to beat Dick Thornburgh, who initially was leading by 46 points. And let me tell you, Harris Wofford was this. He should have been a priest. He was a good priest. He was like this saintly kind of presence, soft-spoken, brilliant, kind. And so he wasn't a classic politician. And the obit clearly shows that most of his life was all about service. He was right-hand man to Sergeant Shriver for putting together the Peace Corps. He did truly himself, as a senator, do the bill, and then became the first head of AmeriCorps. He believed so much in service to country and that all people should do it in some form. He got a law degree from Yale, then went and got another one from Howard University. He was a university professor. He was counsel to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. He was on and on and on and on and on and on and on. He was arrested at the Democratic Convention in 1968. He and his wife went to study with, right after Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated, they went over to India and studied with Gandhi's, disciples. So he was a true fit for being with Dr. King then later. He was just an amazing man. His wife died in 1996, and 10 years later, he married Matthew Charlton.
I remember this.
With whom he'd been living for 15 years. And he said this. He was 90 years old. So they had 2 years to get, well, they had more. They had 2 as married. He said, "I am lucky to be in an era where the Supreme Court has strengthened what President Obama calls the dignity of marriage by recognizing that matrimony is not based on anyone's sexual nature or choices or dreams. It is based on love." And then he went on to say, "Too often, our society seeks to label people by pinning them on the wall, straight, gay, or in between. I do not categorize myself based on the gender of those I love. I had a half-century of marriage with a wonderful woman, and now am lucky for a second time to have found happiness." What a wonderful guy. The only other personal note I want to say is that after he won that, he served Hines's remaining 6 months, then he incredibly beat Dick Thornburgh and had his own 6 years in the Senate. And then he was taken on by this young, congressman from here who I knew very well. And that congressman was Rick Santorum. And it was Rick Santorum who deprived the United States of the wondrous Harris Wofford in the U.S. Senate. Well, it was the people who voted for him. But I once had I had both of them on my radio show on WTAE, and the contrast between these two people was so unbelievable. Santorum was, I thought, so disrespectful of this older, extraordinary man with a history of service that Santorum couldn't match in a million years. And he was, coming at Wofford like now we recognize that, our politics do. But Harris Wofford was this gentleman. He never fired back at and I remember getting really worried. And in fact, that's when the people, I don't know, that was the beginning of the end. When the voters of Pennsylvania didn't understand they had this remarkable human being representing them and went instead for this firebrand, name-calling lunatic, Rick Santorum. So, I'm just saying. Harris Wofford, great man.
Well, at least, praise the Lord, Santorum flamed out.
Yeah, but so how come CNN keeps putting him on? Why? Why do they do that?
No idea.
Because they do.
I don't know. I know. They resurrect careers. I don't know. Well, he's a voice of that, of that group.
Wow. Roger says assumptions. Susan asking that Catholic woman if she was born in Rome reminded me when my lily white American friend was asked where she got her beautiful dark-skinned daughters. My womb was the answer. This happened at the Costco in Cranberry. Oh, God.
Yeah, people are endlessly and so self-assured about their ignorance. It's amazing, and their entitlement to asking these questions.
Right. Exactly.
But it's sort of the same thing as total strangers coming up and putting their hands on pregnant women's bodies.
Right.
There's just a sense of I'm entitled to touch you. I'm entitled to ask you personal questions.
Well, that brings me to this special edition of the New York Times on pregnant women. And I just want to point something out. It just starts with, you might be surprised to learn that in the United States, a woman coping with the heartbreak of losing her pregnancy could also find herself facing jail time. Say she got in a car accident in New York or gave birth to a stillborn in Indiana. In such cases, women have been charged with manslaughter. In fact, a fetus need not die for the state to charge a pregnant woman with a crime. Women who fell down the stairs, who ate a poppy seed bagel and then failed a drug test, or who took legal drugs during pregnancy, drugs prescribed by their doctors, all have been accused of endangering their children. And all of these things I just said, they go on to, relate the stories. But they say all of this illuminates this incredible shift in American society away from a centuries-long tradition in Western law and toward the embrace of a really new concept, and that is that a fetus in the womb has the same rights as a fully formed woman.
No, has more rights.
In some cases. In some cases. Where they keep a dead woman in a vegetative state whose body is actually deteriorating alive, despite her family desperately wanting her to be. I don't know. Women who are pregnant have found themselves stripped of the right to consent to surgery, the right to receive treatment for a medical condition, and even something as basic as the freedom to hold a baby in the moments after birth. And all of this has come since, this whole thing is like so mind-blowing. It's not like we don't know it, but how far we've gone to some place that would have been laughed at in the 70s. Ronald Reagan, when he was governor, signed what was then one of the most liberal abortion laws in the land. In 1972, a Gallup poll found that 68% of Republicans thought that the decision to have an abortion should be made solely by a woman with her doctor. And maybe we'll let the husband in too. But do you believe that? What has happened to us?
No,
it's the what?
Well, and if you throw in there the fact that there's never been a more stark line drawn between how those same people feel, the people that feel that a baby in utero is more important than everything else, do not feel that way the second that baby is born. If they happen to be born on the wrong side of a border, they'll take that baby and throw him in a cage.
Yeah.
And they won't give him proper medical care, and they won't care, and they'll call it an illegal. They'll dehumanize it, and they see nothing wrong with holding both positions. And I'll tell you why. They have no respect for human life. They don't care about the mother. They have no respect for human life. They have respect for fetal life. They have no respect for fully formed life in existence life. They have no respect for it.
But even saying fetal life shows how, a fetus is not alive. It isn't viable.
It's not viable. It is alive.
It's alive in the mother. Take the mother out. And
that's right. That's right. And they remove it from the mother, it is not alive.
No. Okay. So we have a call. Caller, go ahead, please. Hello?
Gamsburg?
Yes. Clarence.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Yes. I was, because of the delay, I was calling about the, people saying things in ignorance.
Yes. Assumptions. Yes.
Assumptions. This happened to me yesterday while I was standing in line buying groceries. The cashier behind the counter said, she said, "Don't look so grumpy." And I said, "What if I told you my grandmother died?" And she said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I said, "She didn't. But what if?" Watch what you say to people. You don't know why they are.
No.
She said, "Well, I just want you to be happy." I said, "Why do you make that assumption? Who are you to try to make me happy? Who are you?"
All right.
Yeah, and that's, and I know women get it all the time. I'll smile.
Smile.
Yeah. Hey, can I just say, speaking of assumptions, can we bring in the Covington kids thing here?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because Frank Bruni writes a piece in the New York Times today saying, okay, now we've seen a whole bunch of footage, extra footage, heard this and that, and it brings us really to a place that should more frequently be our starting point and sometimes even our end point, which is uncertainty.
Yeah, nothing to see here.
Well, there's something to see, but it's unclear. I'll tell you the thing to me that was clear. I do not at all understand the kid stare in the face of the Indian guy. That to me,
wait a minute, doesn't it depend who walked up to whom?
maybe, but why? Okay, maybe. Yeah, but Clarence, you were saying?
I mean, I'm just saying I would back up, but it's different. You are assuming that you walked up, that the kid walked up to
the Native American,
to
but
the Native American.
whose story changed, by the way. Whose story changed. He initially told the first people who interviewed him that he felt, he was trying to get away, blah, blah, blah. And then he came up with this other story, which seems more truthful, that, the kids were being sort of harassed by these, and don't get me on these black Hebrew Israelite God knows whats. I mean, the Southern Poverty Law Center says they're a hate
they're
group.
Christians. Don't let their name fool you.
Yeah.
Christians.
They're nuts. Okay, they're more than they're just friggin' insane. Okay, so they were on the kids, and I think they were on the Native American a little bit too. And I don't know, but he now says he walked in to them, and maybe the kids didn't have a clue what the hell was. I don't know. So what do we say? What do we think?
I actually found the video that was filmed by the Black Israelites themselves.
Oh, really?
That was almost 2 hours long.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're a bunch of jerks, and they were saying the things that the kids said they were saying, And I think they were actually there to support the Native Americans, poor Native Americans. And
because they think Native Americans are another lost tribe of Israel, right? That
exactly.
There's whatever.
Yeah, and and what I concluded was this: after watching, all the different angles, religion ruins everything.
That's right.
And that's
a pox on all their houses.
The kids were there because the Catholic kids were there protesting abortion rights.
Right.
The Black Israelites were there. With their interpretation of the Bible.
Right.
Everything they said.
Right.
Could be backed up by biblical.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Stuff. Literally everything they said could be backed up.
Right.
And the Native American guy, now when he walked up, and he was kind of getting in between them. I don't know if he was approaching them in anger or just trying to calm things down. And but as a former teenage boy, if that situation was like a group of like my friends, from high school, and they walked up to show that I was tough and a man, I would have stood there and stared in the face. If it was a group of Klan members, I would have stood there with that look, and tried to stare him down.
So
exactly that was the reaction I would have had too. Try to stare him down. And within my group, I was one of the tougher guys. You know what I mean? Probably would have been scared to death, but still would have did it.
Well, but it shows, this whole story, though, shows how we are so stuck in our, that we latch onto things that immediately, justify our stances on something. And then and then the Twitter shit and the social media stuff where I hate what and the media jumps in it too. I hate what we're doing. We can't take time. We can't take time to let everything
down. As this story melts away from them, then they go searching at the school until they dig up something else that makes them seem racist.
Right.
And
which they did.
And at a certain point you go, why are you so invested in in pointing this out and finding it? Move on.
Well, because
confirmation bias.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Confirm our beliefs and feelings and all that kind of stuff. So we'll find stuff to confirm it, no matter what the evidence is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. I wish we could. But that assumptions. We all end
Just
up.
think about what you were talking about earlier about the horns and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, religion ruins everything.
Well, I think that
could. About hairs.
Oh.
I'm not talking about the Jews. That need to confirm their bias towards Jews is going. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
No matter it's like, hey, fill my head. Doesn't matter.
No, it's true. It doesn't
They're
matter.
retractable. You have
Yeah, your retractable horns. You can make them come and disappear whenever you want.
They're like little penises. They get erect or they go away.
Yeah, when you see a delicious looking baby.
Yeah, the horns pop out. That's true.
Oh, the horns come out then, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I gotta bring up something else. Unless Unless Clarence, you have a bad pun you want to share?
No, I'm out right now. But who knows what's this next one?
What? Well, you don't have to go. I mean, you don't have to go.
You want me to hang up?
No. You don't have to hang up.
Okay.
We've just got 3 minutes left, but I wanna say something that really pissed me off. I was on Friday night with good friends, including Joanne Rogers, and I had picked her up to go to this dinner, and I said, "So, Joanne, are you still hobnobbing with Tom Hanks and everybody else and blah 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 blah?" She said things have calmed down a little bit. I said, "Are you going to the Oscars?" And she said, "No, I don't want to go to the Oscars." She says, although there is a luncheon that she was planning on going to for all of the nominees. And she was excited about that. And I said, "Oh, wow, think of that. Think of who all the nominees. You'll be there with all, yeah, wow." And I said, "So when do we find out?" She said, "Well, we know we're on the short list, but here's what she told me." She said, the 22nd, which is in fact when it came out, we'll find out. But she said the Ruth Bader Ginsburg documentary is really coming on strong. And she said a lot of people in Hollywood thinks it's because, well, not only was that a great documentary, but because she's ill and because she's consequential. Right. And so I'm willing to bet it goes to RBG, but that they didn't nominate Won't You Be My Neighbor is I was stunned. And I'm not alone. So was the New York Times that says today, well, don't take your shoes off yet. The film was one of the most shocking snubs. It was. It already won, I think, the Critics' Choice Award for Best Documentary. It's an incredible documentary, and it didn't make it. It didn't get nominated. Unbelievable. I just want to say, I'm pissed off.
I haven't seen that film yet. In fact, I haven't seen any of only Black Panther that was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
But I did notice something.
What?
About the Best Picture thing.
Yeah.
Black Panther, Black Klansman, Roma.
Yes.
What is that one about? Queen?
Yeah. Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah. What's the name of that film?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, and then the other one about the Queen of England.
Oh, that's no. It's not about the Queen of England. You're talking about the Favorite, which is
The Favorite.
Which is I find that film flat out awful. I saw it. It's awful. It's a film in which nothing happens. It's just, if you like period drama and you like finding out that Queen Anne was a lesbian and a little nut.
That's it. That's the point. That's the point right there.
Okay.
Queen Anne was a lesbian. Roma, Mexican.
Yeah.
Black Klansman.
Yeah.
Black Panther.
Yeah.
These are all almost anti-Trump film picks.
Yeah.
Besides Vice and A Star Is Born.
Or maybe it's just the Academy trying not to look like the white people's party.
Yeah, but they still are. They still are because
the makeup of the Academy more.
Right.
Yeah.
They still snubbed a bunch of. Spike Lee got his first director's his first. Do you believe that? His first director nomination.
Mm-hmm.
And there aren't a
Yeah,
lot of
but
blacks that were nominated for anything. No.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that one?
Which one?
What's that? No.
Black
It's
Klansman?
Black Klansman.
I saw
The
it.
only one I've seen out of all of them was Black Panther. It's a superhero movie.
Yeah, and they never win. No, they never win.
Yeah,
Superhero movies never win.
But that's the only kind of film I'm going to watch.
Okay. Black Klansman was, I thought, good, but it got very polemical, I think, toward the end, which I found off-putting, even though I agree with the polemics. But, I mean, it just sort of, I thought, got preachy. The Favorite is, I thought, awful. Great acting, but awful. I don't care if it's great acting. It was watching a bunch of human beings act really badly. The difference was, instead of watching men acting badly, which is what we're always doing in movies, we were watching women in power acting badly. Ooh, so it was feminist. It just makes me puke. You know what a great movie was this year? 8th Grade. That was a great movie. That didn't make it.
Yeah, we just watched that. And I thought it was marvelous.
Marvelous.
Yeah,
Doesn't get it. There's a lot. So Hollywood sucks. And on that wonderful. Okay, we're out of time too.
Okay, bye.
Susan, thank
Bye.
you.
Feel
Bye.
better,
Clarence,
Blair.
thank you.
Bye.
I will. Thank you all. Oh, Sally Wiggin tomorrow, my guest, right here in studio. Okay? See ya. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.